This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Baruchim Abam. Today's Iyun Shiur is going to be on the subject of Achilas Teruma of an Eishes Kohein. So it's a Shas Sugya really, and very much relevant to the beginning of the parak. It's actually a Sugya which is relevant to the whole parak. This is the parak of Almana l'Kohen Gadol. In other words, a woman is trying to eat Teruma through her relationship with her husband who's a Kohen. However, that relationship is a forbidden relationship. So let's start with the Gemara. The Mishnah said that Avdei Milug cannot eat Teruma when it's Grusha l'Kohen Hedyard, Almana l'Kohen Gadol. Normally, when a Kohen marries a Grusha, or normally when a Kohen marries a Yisraelis, all of her avadim could eat Teruma, both Avdei Tzayin Barzel and Avdei Milug. However, when it's a forbidden marriage, only the Avdei Tzayin Barzel could eat the Teruma, not the Avdei Milug. And the Gemara starts off by asking, why can't the Avdei Milug eat Teruma? It should be like a Kinyan who bought a Kinyan, meaning the avadim of the Isha is considered like the kinyan of a kinyan, the woman being the kinyan and the avadim the kinyan of the kinyan. And we learned in a brayso, how do I know a kohen who married a woman or it was kohen avadim they could eat teruma? Shenamar v'kohen ki yikne nefesh kinyan kasbay. And how do I know if a woman was kohen avadim or kohen avadim they could eat teruma? Shenamar v'kohen ki yikne nefesh kinyan kasbay hu yoichabay. Kinyanoi shekana kinyanoicha. So we want to discuss the following issue. This halacha that the wife of a kohen could eat teruma, why could the wife of a kohen eat teruma? Why could the wife of a kohen eat teruma? Is it because he owns her? The eved of a kohen could eat teruma, the behema of an eved could eat teruma, the behema of a kohen could eat teruma. The wife of a kohen should be able to eat teruma because he has a monetary acquisition on this woman. The Gemara says it's a drasha. The kohen ki yikna nefesh kinyan kasbay. He owns her the same way he owns his eved. He owns the woman. That's one pshat. The reason why the woman is allowed to eat teruma is because she is the monetary acquisition of the husband. The same way her eved could eat teruma because it's the kinyan of a kinyan. She could eat teruma because she's the kinyan of the kohen. Or perhaps do we say, no, that's not the reason why a kohen, the Eishes kohen could eat teruma. Maybe somehow, by her being married to him, she is no longer a zar. She's elevated to the status of a kohenes, and she could eat teruma on her own right. Okay? Those are the two tzedadim. So let's start with a question brought by Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman in the Kovetz Haaretz in Siman Mem Zayin. Rabbi Elchanan quotes Shas Tshuvas B'Samim Roish, Siman Shin Mem, and in the Shas Tshuvas B'Samim Roish, Siman Shin Mem, there are footnotes from someone called Kisei Daharsana, who asks, we know Eishes Kohen Shenes Chalala, right? If the wife of a Kohen became a Chalala, so she becomes pasul from eating teruma. Ma'ishna mishivchas kohen dahavya zoina. Why is it different than the shivcha of a kohen, who she's a zoina? Question: we know that every shivcha has the status of a zoina, and we know that shivcha of a kohen could eat teruma. Why? But she's a chalala. She's pasul. She's a zoina. So the same way the shivcha of a kohen could eat teruma, even though she's a zoina, the wife of a kohen who's a chalala should be able to eat teruma because she's kinyan kasbay. The same way, the shivcha of a kohen could eat teruma because you own her, and we could disregard the fact that she's a zayna. Then a wife who's a chalala should also be able to eat teruma because you own her. She's kinyan kasbay. What would the difference be between a shivcha shenes chalala could eat teruma because she's kinyan kasbay, and Ishtai, who's a grusha and a chalala who cannot eat teruma, she's also kinyan kasbay. Ma'ishna mishivchas kayin dahavya zoyna mikamakam oicheles b'teruma mishum dahava kinyan kasbay shel kayin. That's the question we're going to deal with. That's a question brought up by Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, and many Achronim deal with this. The Imrei Moshe, Chidushay Reb Baruch Ber. We're going to see the approach of Reb Shmuel Rozovsky, Rashiva of Panovich, Chidushay Reb Shmuel. Before we do that, I want to share with you a Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch says, V'ulam, which mitzvah is this? Let me see if I could. The Chinuch is in mitzvah Reish Pei. Okay? The Chinuch, he says, you should know, Ki Isra Achilas Kohenes B'Teruma Ba'oida Tachas Bala Yisrael Loi L'madnu Mizah Kotzav Klau. We know, let's say a woman is a Kohenes, father's a Kohen, and she's married to Yisrael. Is she allowed to eat Teruma? No. Why? Says the Chinuch, we don't learn it out from a pasuk. Shaloi ba'alav ha'peirosh lidroish by kach elamasha kasavnu. This peirosh did not come to darshan only what we wrote. Aval zeh ha'isser limduhu chachamim zechornim levracha balei ha'kabbalah mimakam acher midachsiv v'chol zar lo yoichal kodesh. You know why a kohenes who marries Yisrael cannot eat truma? Because the pasuk says V'chol zar lo yechal kodesh sheba alav ha'peirosh b'kabbalah. The explanation for this, based on tradition, is shekol zman she'isha tachas bala, so long as a woman is under the auspices of her husband, dahainu bala ha'yisrael shehu zar min ha'kuhuna, a husband who's Yisrael, who's a zar from kuhuna, lo yitoichal kodesh, should not eat kodshim. Ki Eishes Hazar Nechsheves Kizar. You hear this? The wife of a Yisrael, the wife of a non-Kohen, is considered a non-Kohen. Harehi Kamai Achas Mitzaloisav. She becomes like one of his ribs. V'dazeh, you should know this, v'kableo, and accept it, ki kein ha'emes ha'makubal. This is the truth. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, the reason why a Kohenes who's married to Yisrael cannot eat Truma is not learnt out of a pasuk. It is learnt out from the din of v'chol zar lo yochal kodesh. And once she marries him and she's under his auspices and he's a non-Kohen, she becomes a non-Kohen. She is subsidiary to him. She becomes part of him. She's no longer part of the priestly clan. Now, would this svara go lehepach? What if a Yisraelis marries a Kohen? Does she now become a Kohen? In other words, that was really our chakira. Why can an Eishes Kohen eat Truma? Is it because he owns her and she's kinyan kasbay like an Eved? Or maybe she becomes a Kohen? What would the nafkamina be? I'll tell you a few possible nafkaminas. There's a mitzvah for a Kohen to eat Truma. If she becomes a Kohen, it would be a mitzvah for her to eat Truma. A Kohen makes a bracha when he eats Truma. An Eved of a Kohen does not make a bracha. Also, the cow of a Kohen does not make a bracha. When the cow eats Truma, the Eved doesn't make a bracha. Does the woman make a bracha? Is she imbued with Kedushas Kahuna, or is she just Kinyan Kasbai? Okay, that's a very interesting chakira. I want to show you the lashon of the Kiryas Sefer. The Kiryas Sefer says, Denasis kohenes b'nisueha. She becomes a kohenes in her marriage. I'll tell you another nafkamina. If somebody eats truma, you have to pay the kohen karen v'choimesh, the principal and a fifth. What if a Bas Yisrael ate truma and then she married a kohen? So she has to pay a karen v'choimesh. Who does she pay to? The Kiryas Sefer says she pays herself because she becomes a kohenes. You hear this? If a Yisraelis eats truma and she marries a kohen, by the way, it's a great trick. Yisraelis could go around eating thousands of pounds of truma, and then she wants to get off the hook. She'll pay herself. Marry a kohen and pay herself. So this is a novel way of looking at Eishes Kohen. Eishes Kohen is not Kinyan Kasba. Now the difficulty with this is The same exact line in the Gemara that darshans the eved of a kohen could eat truma from kinyan kasbay, darshans that the wife of a kohen could eat truma from kinyan kasbay. So how could you differentiate between the achila? 1 second, battery timeout. How could you differentiate between the achila of a eved and the achila of an isha? It's learned out from the very same pasuk. How could you say the eved eats because he's kinyan kasbay, the woman eats because she's a kohenes? The Gemara learns it out from the same pasuk of kinyan kasbay. So Rabbi Elchanan, I did not put this part on the sheet. A few pages later, he says kinyan kasbay could mean two things. Kinyan kasbay could mean someone who you have a monetary ownership over, namely the eved, and kinyan kasbay could mean someone who you bought with money, namely the wife. You married her with kinyan kesef, and once you did so, she becomes a kohenes. So really the repercussions are somewhat different. Take a look at, this is Chidushei Shiurei Reb Shmuel. Let's start again with the kasha, the kisa, the harsana, who he wants to know why is it that a shivcha could eat truma, she's a zoina, and a chalala cannot eat truma. Why? The same way the shivcha is allowed to eat because she's a kinyan kasbay, the chalala should be allowed to eat because she's kinyan kasbay. Now, according to the tzad and the chakira, that a woman's allowed to eat because she's not a zar, she has kedushas kahuna. So now we understand a very simple chiluk, a very simple differentiation, namely that when it comes to the shivcha, why does she eat? Because you own her, not because she has kedushas kahuna, because you own her. So even if she's a zaina, you own her. The cow is also not the holiest entity in the world, but the cow is allowed to eat truma because you own the cow. So the shivcha, she might be a zaina, but she's eating because you own her. Mashein kain, the wife is eating truma not because you own her, because through buying her, she was imbued with kedushas kahuna. But if she's a chalala, then she doesn't get kedushas kahuna, and she can't eat truma. That would be the answer to the question of the kisa, the harsana. Let's look in Reb Shmuel. He says, "Oid yesh lo hichiach, the yesh chiluk bein eshes kohen ve'eved kohen le'inyan achilas truma." We could prove that there's a chiluk between the wife of a kohen, the eved of a kohen, regarding eating truma. Dehinei yadua, it is known, mashehiksha hakisa deharsana, hech shivchas kohen oichas v'truma hakol shivcha havazoina. You have to say to answer the kusan of the harsana's question, and the Rabbi Chanan Vassman says the same thing. That the reason why a zoina doesn't eat truma, it's not an isser. A zoina can't eat truma. It's not that there's a psul on a zoina that can't eat truma. It's not like an arel or a tameh. The reason is because a zoina loses kedushas kahuna, so she's like a zar, like the Rambam explains. So a shivcha, even though she's a zoina, she's not eating because she has kedushas kahuna in the first place. The reason why a shivcha eats truma is not because of the kedushas kahuna, because she's kinyanai shala adam. So matzi shaper lecha b'truma. Because even if she wouldn't be a zoina, she didn't have kedushas kahuna and she could still eat. In other words, the reason why a shivcha eats truma has nothing to do with the fact that she has kedushas kahuna. It's not because she has kedushas kahuna. She doesn't have kedushas kahuna. However, she eats truma because the reason she eats truma is because she's kinyan kasbay. So even if she's a zaina, she's still kinyan kasbay. So now here's the question. So why doesn't Eishes Kohen eat truma when she's a zaina because of kinyan kasbay as well? Isn't Eishes Kohen also kinyan kasbay? Ela defizet tzarich bi'arim came be Eishes Kohen shehi zoina amai eino oicheles mishum kinyan kasbay. Umuchach. You could prove from here, the reason why Eishes Kohen could eat Truma, she's not like a slave. The Kinyan Ishus loy mahani lahacha b'truma mitzad atzmai. In other words, the reason why Eishes Kohen eats Truma, it's not from her husband. Eishes Kohen doesn't eat because she's owned by her husband. Because kinyan ishus does not help lahacha b'truma mitzad atzmai. The kinyan of marriage is not like owning a cow. You hear this? When you own a cow, you own the cow. When you own an eved, you own the eved. When you marry a woman, that kinyan, it does not constitute kinyan kaspa in the fullest sense, but what it does is, it makes her subsidiary to him and endows her with her own ability to eat truma. El hatam de eishes kohen oichelas b'truma, hu mishum de yesh lo koyach machmas atzma lecha b'truma. The reason is she's endowed with her own ability to eat truma. She has kedushas kahuna. B'kiven the havia zoina paka mimenu kedushas kahuna ve'eno eichelas b'truma. So that's what we're saying. The difference between a shivcha and an isha is a shivcha has her own independent ability. The shivcha eats because she's owned, and therefore even though she's a zoina, which would make her a zar, it's irrelevant, because she doesn't eat because she's not a zar. She eats because she's owned. But a woman eats because she's a kohenes. She becomes like a kohenes. However, if she's a chalala, so she cannot attain the status of kedushas kahuna. Here's the problem. Ulefize muchach de eishes kohen eino oichelas klal mishum kinyan kasbay. That means the wife of a kohen does not eat at all because of kinyan kasbay. The problem is this does not fit into the lashon of our Gemara on Daf Samach Vav. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky wrote a sefer on Hilchos Zraim called Derech Emunah. A lot of people are learning the chelik of Shvius now. And here, this is the sefer. It looks like the Mishnah Berurah. It has two chalakim. He wrote, Reb Chaim wrote like a Shulchan Aruch on top. And on the right side he wrote Derech Emunah, which is like the Mishnah Berurah, and the left side he wrote Bir Halacha. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky asked the same exact question on Reb Elchanan. Again, this is the approach of Reb Shmuel and Reb Elchanan, that an Eved is Kinyan Kasbay and a woman attains Kedushas Kahuna. Ela shel fiza yesh la'ayin. The Gemara asks in Parak Alman al Kohen Gadol, Alman al Kohen Gadol, that was Kohen Avadim should eat Truma because it's like a Kinyan Shekana Kinyan. Remember the Gemara's Kasha we started with? The Avdei Milug of an Alman al Kohen Gadol should eat Truma because it's a Kinyan Shekana Kinyan. Huh? It's not Kinyan Shekana Kinyan. The wife is the Eishes Kohen is not a Kinyan. She only eats because she has Kedushas Kahuna. And she cannot eat because she's a Chalala here. So what was the Gemara's Kasha? V'tzarchian. Bishlama mashi atzmai chazam mishum Kinyan kasbay. Bishlam, if you say the reason why the woman eats is because she's a Kinyan, imkain parach shapir, then the Gemara is asking good, it's Kinyan shekana Kinyan. Ulam inami inema de ino yichalach mishum Kinyan kasbay. She's not eating because of Kinyan kasbay, mishum de yesh lo kedushas kahuna lecha b'truma. Uma de hi atzma ino necheles. Really, she eats because she has Kedushas Kahuna. And the reason why she doesn't eat is because she's like a Zar. How could she feed her Avadim? If she doesn't eat because of Kinyan Kasbay, then how could she feed her Avadim? Bimkain, im hi atza eno ches v'shum shi chalala ve'en lo Kedushas Kahuna ech yochel Avadim. And that's not the Gemara's answer. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky also is medayik from the lashon of our Gemara that the reason why a woman eats is because of Kinyan Kasbay. In fact, Reb Chaim says, after saying that a woman eats because she's Kinyan Kasbay, Let me just see if we can see any of the nafkaminas of this. 1 second. Reb Chaim seems to say accordingly, there would be no mitzvah for a woman to eat Truma. Reb Chaim says, Elavadai she'enon mevarchin klal. A woman that eats Truma does not make a bracha at all. Meaning, according to the tzad al-chakir of Rabbi Elchanan, that a woman eats because she has kedushas kahuna, she would make asher kedushanim kedushasai shal aharon, which is amazing because she's a Yisraelis. Technically, if she would have a woman's prayer group, she could duchen. Now, obviously not. It's B'nai Yisrael, but the point being that there's a certain investiture of Kedushas Kahuna that is chal on the woman according to Rabbi Elchanan. As opposed to, Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, absolutely not. There is no mitzvah of achilas truma on a Eishes Kohen, and there's no bracha either. She eats like a behema eats. And then Reb Chaim says, Shuvra Isi, he sees the Imrei Moshe and the Kavet HaAros. They all say, not like me, that a woman eats truma because she is invested with a certain kedusha. Says Reb Chaim, v'hanira lanias daiti kasafti, that a woman is a kinyan kasbay, like an eved and like a behema. Now, there's a very important Rashi in Masechta Kedushin. So, ad kan the Sugya and Yavamas. It's kedai to know there's a major Machlokes achronim. How do we view the achilas kodshim of an Eishes Kohen? To answer the Kisa the Harsano's question of what's the difference between an Eishes Kohen who's a Chalala and an Eved who's a Zoina, it would seem to indicate that an Eved eats al kinyan kasba and a woman eats because she's subsidiary to him. But on the other hand, the Lashon of the Gemara is not mashma that way, because the Gemara asks, the avodim of the Isha should eat, why should they eat? But she has lost her Kedushas Kahuna in this case. There's a very important Rashi in Kedushin Yud Amud Beis, where Rashi brings another possible makar, why the household members of a Kohen could eat Truma. Rashi says, Nafgale b'sifri, mikol tahar beveischa yoichal oisai. The Sifri learns out that any member of the house of the Kohen could eat Truma. Now, his children, we understand, they're Kohanim, they're Kohenes, but what about his wife? Kol tahar beveischa yoichal oisai. There seems to be a gzeras hakasav, aside for kinyan kasbay, of kol tahar beveischa yoichal oisai. Now that seems like the other side of the chakira, that she doesn't eat because he owns her, she eats independently because she is tahar and she's in his house. So Rav Aaron Kotler takes this Rashi and he says that really there are two dinim by every Eishes Kohen. The din of Reb Chaim Kanievsky of Kinyan Kasbay, and another din d'oraisa of Kol Zar Lo Yochal, Kol Tahar Beveischa Yochal Kodesh. Even though, by the way, we happen to have had a Tosfos that we read that learns that it's only an asmachta. Rashi in Kedushin seems to say it's a din d'oraisa. Just want to show you, it's in the Mishnah of Aaron in Siman Chavav. He brings V'nira de Baha de Eishes Kohen Oicheles B'Truma Yeshnam Shnei Dinim Shoinim. There are two separate dinim. One, the din of Kinyan Kasbay, Dumya de Eved, and Umitzad din Zeh Be'emes Yitachan de Dumya Eved Kohen. A woman could eat because she is similar to the Eved of a Kohen. And when the kinyan of the Baal is pakai, she can't eat anymore. And the din of the Sifri that an Eishes Kohein oicheles mikol tar b'veischa yochel oisai. Tosfos says it's an asmachta. Where is this Tosfos? One second. Tosfos here, he says that Tosfos kan besugya nidcha kulaymar dehava asmachta. Tosfos in our sugya wants to say it's only asmachta ba'alma. Dehukshulahu, because Tosfos is bothered. Lama lon shrei drashas. Why do I need two drashas? Number one, kinyan kasbay, and kol tahar beveischa yochal kodesh. Alafirish Rashi Mekadushim Mavur Lahadya, the Drasha Gemurahi. And says Rabbi Aaron, both dinim are needed. We need the din of Kinyan Kasbay, and we need the din of Kal Tar B'Veischa Yochal Kodesh. Then we call Tar B'Veischa Yafinon Diyesh Le'Eshes Kohen Din Atzmi. Ukishem de Kohenes Eshes Hazar Harehi Kazar, Hachinam Yisraelish Eshes Kohen Harehi Kekoyen. So let's just think for a moment. If you want to say that there are two dinim, that a woman could eat because she's kinyan kasbay, and she could also eat because she is imbued with kedushas kahuna. Now, let's assume the reason why she's imbued with Kedushas Kahuna is through the Kinyan Kesef. Going back to the question of the Kisa, the Harsana, the Shivcha is a Zaina. Why could she eat? Because she's Kinyan Kasbay. So why don't we say the same thing? A woman is also Kinyan Kasbay. So Rabbi Elchanan says, no, a woman is not Kinyan Kasbay. A woman becomes like a Kohenes. So if she is a Chalala, she can't eat Truma. But if we're going to say like Rabbi Aaron, that there are two dinim, there's a din of Kinyan Kasbay, and there's a din that she is imbued with Kedushas Kahuna. So then, granted, she doesn't have Kedushas Kahuna, but let her eat Alts Kinyan Kasbay. Somehow, Kinyan Kasbay cannot allow her to eat on her own. It can only get her to being able to eat by being subsidiary to the Kohen. Even though the Lashon of the Gemara is, the Avadim are the Kinyan of a Kinyan. If somehow we can make the following split, that even though the wife of a Kohen, she's the Kinyan in the sense that her Kinyanim are Kinyan Sha'asa Kinyan, but she is not a Kinyan in the sense that she would be able to eat if she was a Chalala. Okay, Marv Rabbi Sai, what to think about? If anybody wants these Mara Makoimos, I'll be happy to share with you. Okay, have a good day, everyone. Bracha v'atzlacha, kol tov, bye-bye.
I mean, there's also a chiluk between a shivcha and an isha, right? Because by a shivcha...
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.